Asian states are generally built upon the foundations of ancient civilizations, and I think cultural memories run very deep. My own sense is that most Asian societies are profoundly alert to the existential threat posed by the political ambitions and the nuclear arsenals of the Chinese Communist Party and of many of the states you've mentioned. Yet, my sense is that Asian societies also remember Japan's history as a colonizing power in the region, and that countries like South Korea in particular still harbor lingering suspicions and resentment from the Japanese occupation. What do you think Japan would need to do to put such historical misgivings to rest, to rally together Asian democracies against the contemporary menaces you've identified?
It's a phenomenally important question, Akash, really. And again, I'm using a very strong word. I'd like to suggest that people who would like to be more familiar with my opinions go to my free and open Indo-Pacific.net, which focuses on the very issues that you have so sort of sharply brought to the fore here. Japan supplies the most perfect example of a pacifist country which has learned quickly, very painfully though, the lessons of its very short, I said, its very short imperialist slash colonial tradition. It lasted for exactly 50 years between 1895 and 1945. Japan's leadership, two emperors and at least 18 prime ministers after 1945, after 1952, because in 1952 Japan was under the official and actual control of the Allied powers centered on the United States. Very significant Canadian participation, by the way. People may know of Herbert Norman. And these days, when imperialism or colonialism are bandied about as very bad, very negative expressions, immediately coming to the fore, which is very unfortunate and completely ahistorical, the Western colonial powers, which have not existed anymore, certainly not since the Second World War. Historically, the only two powers which have been most successful as imperialist and colonialist powers have been Russia and China, or I think I should say China and Russia. What China historically did from east to west, reaching to Central Asia, I think people are aware of the Uyghur entity, and then of course southwest of there, Xinjiang or Tibet. Russia did historically from west to east. 1850, Vladivostok was established. Vladivostok means ruler of the East. So the Western colonial powers, the democracies, constitute a glittering example, I dare say, of A, bringing imperialism to an end, colonialism as well, apologizing in countless ways, a little bit, more often than not, a little bit in an politically self-defeating and absolutely unnecessarily way. Have you ever heard of China apologizing to Tibet? Have you ever heard China apologizing to the Uyghurs? Has anybody heard the party that you call the Communist Party of China apologizing to the people for having allowed Mao Zedong to stay in power after being responsible for the murder, well, actually the death, he didn't do it one by one, of at least 40 million people, thanks to his absolutely mentally unhinged policies between 1958 and 1962, and then during the so-called Cultural Revolution between 1966 and 1976, September 9, when Mao Zedong died. And you use the word Communist Party informally, you're absolutely right. Have you ever heard of Marxist, communist Marxists? By the way, in 2017, Xi Jinping sent a brand new spanking statue of Marx to the city of Trier, where Marx was born. Have you ever heard of the Marxist Communist Party that has card-carrying members who are billionaires? That's absurd.
Professor Carvalho, if I may,
Yes.
I'm very happy that you brought up some of the impacts of these different countries because, even though Japan's imperial legacy might have been short, I don't want us to equivocate brevity with impact, given not only the numbers affected by Japan's imperial rule, but also the swath of territory in the co-prosperity sphere as well. So
I couldn't agree with you more. I agree with you completely. Nowhere in what I said did I, and if I came through that way, I'm not apologizing. I'm just correcting myself or adding a few words to your remark, which is absolutely accurate. Nobody in their right mind with any kind of even superficial knowledge of history would minimize, let alone justify, God forbid, the bestial way in which the Japanese imperial military behaved specifically between 1931 and 1945, but in the case of Korea, actually in the 1920s, towards Koreans, towards Chinese, and to an extent even in Southeast Asia towards the Dutch, actually Canadians who were Canadian prisoners of war who were brutally mistreated against all the basic fundamental laws of war. You are absolutely right, and nobody can, not deny. My goodness, how can anybody deny that? The point I was trying to make, maybe perhaps not clearly enough, which is maybe the moment, just another few words. Japan behaved in the bestial way that I described a minute ago. Gradually, it came to terms, in its great majority, everybody, of course not, with that period in its past, and has tried its very best to practically reinvent itself. And I think that insofar as its behavior, stemming from the Peace Constitution of 1947, and in general, Japan has lived up to what the Constitution had provided that it would behave like. And that is the only thing I'm saying. And again, apologizing and living up to those apologetic statements is exactly what the governments of Japan have done ever since. Are there exceptional cases? Certain sections within the Japanese political spectrum, if you will, who dare to refer to Japan's behavior until 1945 as being an effort to liberate Asia from Western imperialism? Yes, there are. Certain section of Yasukuni Shrine in the heart of Tokyo contain those kind of absurd and, again, ahistorical materials.